walang patid yung pag-ulan dito sa lungsod ng Maynila, kaya nananatili pa rin lubog sa baha yung ilang mga kalsada kagaya na lang dito sa aking kinatatayuan.
Higit 6,000 ang naitalang nasawi, higit 28,000 naman ang nasugatan, nasa 1,000 ang nawawala at 3 milyong pamilya ang naapektuhan.
Mabilis na kumalat ang apoy sa ilang bahay sa Balitondo mag-alas 4 kaninang madaling araw.
Hindi na namin kaya pag dito sa ilalim meron ng apoy. Malakas ako yung nandito na ako sa bahay namin. Alamin!
Governor Gonzaga rito, hindi hihinto yung gobyerno sa retrieval operation dahil ang gusto niya isaulit talaga yung mga patay.
Daghan siya gitabangan niya. Panahon sa iya ato siguro pasigin siya agit siya wa ginakatabang sa iya.
Kaya nag-abiso naman ang provincial government sa mga namatayan sa landslide na maaari nilang tingnan at suriin sa mga punerarya ang 17 pa na mga unidentified na mga labi.
An earthquake with the power to be so destructive, Pacific Northwest locals often refer to its impending doom as the Big One.
As defined by Dr. Alfredo Mahar Lagmay, there's no such thing as natural disasters, only natural hazards. The Philippines has been hit by a lot of them, and it left a lot of families devastated and wrecked with typhoons like Typhoon Yolanda in 2013 and Typhoon Ondoy, just to name a few. And with the Philippines averaging 20 typhoons per year, it is clear that living in the Philippines is no joke. It is hard for a lot of our people, especially in areas where they are heavily exposed to the typhoons that are developing in the Western Pacific Ocean. Areas like the Bicol region, Eastern Visayas, and the coast of Eastern Luzon. So, what do we do about it? What are the precautions and measures that we should take to lessen the impact of these terrible and powerful natural hazards? And that's where DRR comes in, or disaster risk reduction. But first, let's define what a disaster is. It is a serious disruption of the functioning of a community due to hazardous events interacting with the conditions of exposure, its vulnerability, capacity, that will eventually lead to environmental losses, financial losses, and especially human losses. Disasters are largely human made due to lack of preparation. That these natural hazards themselves don't cause disasters. It is the absence of the preparation, the knowledge, and mitigation that turns these hazards into disasters. This should shift the responsibility of our communities and our government to prioritize preparedness and education to our people. And we should highlight the role or our role as a community in these disaster outcomes because what would happen in the long run? Climate change is getting much, much worse every year. Our typhoons is getting stronger. And if we don't band together, we don't take the necessary steps into mitigating these hazards, well, our losses would be much, much greater than ever before. So I want to talk about the distinction between hazard, risk, exposure, and vulnerability. So basically, hazard is it's a process, a phenomenon, or even a man-made activity that may cause a loss of life. It can cause property damage, and it can cause social disruption. And risk is basically a culmination of three other things. It's hazard, it's It needs you need to be exposed, you need to be vulnerable for you to be considered in a very high risk of a disaster. Exposure basically means that, well, you're exposed in you're in a hazard prone area. Maybe you live in the mountains and frequent landslides occur there, so you're exposed. And vulnerability is basically, it's a bunch of factors that combine to make you more susceptible to the impacts of these hazards. It can be physical, social, environmental factors that, well, you will have a hard time dealing with the impacts of these hazards because of those factors. And basically, risk takes all of that into account. So if you know you qualify for those three, you are in a very high risk of, well, a disaster. So now I'm going to talk about the four pillars of DRRM, which is prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery and rehabilitation. So basically, prevention and mitigation is the one that should comes first. Dapat siya yung pina-prioritize natin. According to dun sa pie chart ng NDRRMC, prevention and mitigation takes half of it. So this is actually very important to do before the impacts of the hazard occur. This is what we do just before it happens. No, not just before, but way, way, way before it happens. So an example of this is something that we did to our house. We put up these concrete barriers. So kasi may thunderstorm every now and then there, and usually the flooding gets really bad na pumapasok sa bahay namin. So nilagyan namin ng mga concrete barriers doon sa baba. Maliit lang siya, parang pwede mo siya talunan, okay? So, para mahirapan yung tubig na makapasok. And usually, pumapasok pa rin. Pero, it mitigates the damages to our house. So, preparedness is something that we do or the government does just before the hazard happens. Usually, nagmi-meeting sila a few days before, a few hours before, and this is where sometimes nag-a-announce na sila na to stay at home, to go to their nearest evacuation center. And response is something that happens during the hazard. Basically, mga local government units siguro well, maybe they're trying to save people, mga nasa stranded na hindi na makaalis sa bahay, ganun. And of course, rehabilitation and recovery, it happens after the hazard. And usually, yeah, local government pa rin ang nag-aano dito. They try to give out to the people in need, yung mga nawalan talaga ng mga gamit, nawalan ng pagkain, and they give to those people that need supplies. And dito na rin nagsa-start yung people na mag-rebuild ng mga bahay nila kung nasira man. And of course, all of these pillars are very important to DRRM. But prevention and mitigation takes half of that pie chart because it's the very important of them. It's napaka-importante ng prevention and mitigation talaga. If we are prepared and yung mga properties natin well built, may proper safety protocols when a hazard happens, yun talaga yung determining factor para maging less yung damages natin. And so that's why prevention and mitigation should always be prioritized by us and by our government. So I want to talk about the vulnerabilities in my community and the potential hazards that would impact us. So in I live in Camp Aguinaldo in Quezon City, and you'd expect from the main headquarters of the AFP that their buildings would be up to date in terms of building standards, but a lot of our buildings are actually very, very old. A lot of warehouses, their barracks, Um, but some of them are being renovated as we speak. Uh, they're building a lot of new facilities as well that are up to code in terms of their seismic codes. But yeah, a lot of them are they are demolishing a lot of old buildings as well actually, but there's still pretty much there's still people living in them, just like ours. Our building is well, it's pretty old. It's like 10 years, 15 years old. And if an earthquake were to happen, let's say the big one, which we are pretty very close to the West Valley Fault, we wouldn't. There's a high chance that we wouldn't survive it if it were to happen here. And yeah, the building wouldn't survive because it's actually degrading as we speak. So I mean, we can't really do anything about it. I mean, they're gonna demolish this soon enough if the subway outside gets built. Yeah, and also that's I think that's one potential hazard that we face, I guess. I mean, they're building like a big hole outside of our house. That's pretty worrying, right? What if the soil erodes or something, you know? But I'm sure they're doing pretty good job on it. I guess it's being built pretty fast. And yeah, if some hazards were to happen here, earthquakes, typhoons and flooding would pretty much uh have a huge impact on us. So what do I want to propose to be done that is aligned by a DRRM strategies by the four pillars? So obviously, for prevention and mitigation, we need to upgrade those old buildings, or at least, yeah, that's what they're doing right now. They're actually demolishing all the old buildings that are pretty much dangerous to still be standing because they're not up to code with the seismic um, seismic codes that should be the standard of buildings right now. And if they do that, um, it would actually make this community safer, right? Because these buildings are really very big hazard. They're hazard prone areas right now. If the big one were to happen, and we need drainage, we need a proper drainage system here, because flooding really gets really bad here and it's very annoying. So uh, for a military camp to not have these precautions, uh, and it's just being done right now, it's disappointing, honestly. Yeah, and some of the facilities here need to be in check as well. They need to be done properly. They should be. I mean, come on, it's the main headquarters of the army of the country's army. So, it everything should be up to standard. So if we if we're talking about hazards, this place is it'll probably survive, but it's gonna incur a loss, a very huge loss of damages. A lot of buildings are gonna be damaged. So I hope they do implement them. Uh, they should upgrade those old buildings, and it's great that they're actually building new. They're renovating a lot of those old buildings and building new ones, building new facilities, so some units can transfer to them. And also drills. Drills are very important. Earthquake drills, fire drills should be done maybe annually, so that people won't forget what to do. And every household family should be or should have uh, emergency go bags. Everybody, every household should have them. They're very important. You know, supplies, whatever you need in case of an emergency. So yeah, that's what at least everybody or the government should do in terms of preparedness.